The endocrine system is a collection of organs called endocrine glands that are located in various parts of the body. These glands secrete chemical messengers called hormones directly into the bloodstream, which then carries them to their destinations throughout the body.
You can think of the endocrine and nervous systems as two parts of a single control system. The nervous system sends and receives messages through nerve cells. It must often react very quickly to stimulate a response, such as pulling your fingers away from a hot stove so you don't get burned. In contrast to nerve impulses, hormones travel much slower. They control responses that don't have to be immediate, but do need to be more generalized and longer lasting, so they take a slower route to their destinations via the bloodstream.
Hormones can be divided into two general chemical groups, steroids and non-steroids. Steroids include all of the sex hormones produced by the ovaries and testes, estrogens, progesterone, and testosterone, and substances from the adrenal cortex of the kidney, such as cortisol and a form of vitamin D. Non-steroid hormones include proteins, such as insulin from the pancreas, growth hormone from the pituitary gland, and molecules called amines, such as thyroid hormone from the thyroid gland. Steroids are part of a group of biological molecules called lipids or fats. Lipids don't dissolve in water, so they're referred to as hydrophobic, which literally means water-fearing. In order to be transported through water-based bodily fluids such as the blood, lipids must combine with protein molecules to form lipoproteins. Non-steroid hormones are water-soluble, so they are called hydrophilic or water-loving. They can travel through the blood as they are. Hormones act on target cells. Each target cell has a receptor protein for its specific hormone molecule. The receptor and the hormone attach to each other exclusively, like a lock and key. Because cell membranes are made primarily of lipids, all lipids can easily enter or leave cells. So the receptors for lipids are inside the cell. Water-soluble proteins and amine molecules can't cross the waterproof lipid cell membrane on their own, so their receptors are located on the outside of the cell membrane. But the receptor protein extends through the membrane and is attached to a signal protein on the inside.
Each type of cell has a different set of receptor proteins. So, the same hormone can produce different responses in different types of cells, or no response at all, depending on the specific set of receptor proteins the cells contain.
Once a hormone has attached to a receptor, the receptor causes a specific change inside the cell through a process called signal transduction. Endocrine glands are located in various parts of the body. The hypothalamus is located near the center of the brain. It receives chemical and nervous input about sight, sound, taste, smell, temperature, and blood glucose concentration, as well as salt and water balance. It also helps control hunger and thirst, as well as mating and sexual behavior. The hypothalamus controls the pituitary gland, which is attached to the underside of the brain. The pituitary gland has two parts, the anterior and posterior pituitary. The anterior pituitary releases many hormones, including growth hormone, which stimulates bone and muscle growth, and endorphins, which reduce the perception of pain. The pineal gland, about the size of a pea, is located slightly above and behind the hypothalamus. It receives information about light and dark cycles and secretes melatonin, which is involved in rhythmic behavior such as sleep cycles. The thyroid gland is a butterfly-shaped structure located in front of the trachea, or windpipe, between the larynx and the notch at the top of the rib cage. The thyroid gland releases thyroid hormone, which plays a critical role in development and growth. It also increases the body's metabolic rate and the release of calcitonin, a hormone that lowers blood calcium. The parathyroid glands are 4 small tissue masses attached to the back of the thyroid. They secrete parathyroid hormone, which raises blood calcium levels, producing the opposite effect of calcitonin. The thymus gland, located in the chest region, produces thymosin, a chemical that activates lymphocytes, cells that are involved in many aspects of immunity. The pancreas, located beneath the stomach, secretes two hormones, insulin and glucagon. Insulin lowers your blood glucose level, while glucagon raises it. Together, insulin and glucagon maintain a nearly constant concentration of glucose in our blood. The two kidneys, located at the back of the abdominal cavity just below the rib cage, produce renin, a hormone that ultimately helps regulate blood pressure, and erythropoietin, a hormone that stimulates red bone marrow to produce more red blood cells. The adrenal glands sit above the kidneys. The outside of the adrenal gland, the adrenal cortex, secretes cortisol. The middle of the gland, the medulla, secretes epinephrine and norepinephrine, also known as adrenaline and noradrenaline.
Epinephrine and norepinephrine are hormones that are released during periods of stress. For example, they cause the response known as fight or flight that gives you a seeming boost in energy or strength that allows you to survive a possible life-threatening situation.
The gonads, which are the ovaries in women, and the testes in men, produce the sex hormones. The ovaries produce estrogens, the primary sex hormones in females, and progesterone. The testes produce androgens. All living cells need energy to do work and grow and divide. For most cells, the sugar molecule glucose is the source of this energy.
Complex carbohydrates are digested to produce glucose molecules in the small intestine, and amino acids are also converted into glucose molecules. These molecules are then picked up by the blood and transported to all the cells of the body.
The liver and muscle cells take in glucose and store it as a larger molecule called glycogen. As mentioned before, the blood glucose level is primarily maintained by insulin and glucagon. These two hormones are produced by groups of cells in the pancreas called islets of Langerhans. There are two different kinds of islet cells: alpha cells, which secrete glucagon, and beta cells, which secrete insulin. These hormones have opposite reactions. Insulin lowers blood glucose, and glucagon raises it. After a person eats carbohydrates, blood glucose levels go up. That stimulates the beta cells to release insulin into the blood. People with type 1 diabetes have to provide additional insulin because their beta cells don't produce a sufficient quantity. The insulin travels throughout the body, enhancing the transport of glucose from the blood into cells. Insulin also increases the production of glycogen in the liver and muscle cells.
As your blood glucose level goes down, the pancreas gradually produces less insulin until the level reaches about 80 to 85 milligrams of glucose per 100 milliliters of blood. Then, when blood glucose drops to about 50 milligrams per 100 milliliters, the alpha islet cells of the pancreas begin to secrete glucagon. This glucagon stimulates the liver and the muscles to convert glycogen to glucose, which quickly raises blood glucose levels again.
The net effect of these two hormones is to keep blood glucose levels in a nearly constant balance, called homeostasis.